Welcome to the Intentional Household Podcast, episode 6. Today, our topic is help, I can't find a babysitter. Alex, why are we talking about this today?
Because if you want to live an intentional life and do the things you want to do, and you have children, sometimes you have to be away from your children. And so many times, Laura and I have looked at going to events or talked to other people of doing something with us, and they have so much trouble finding a babysitter. And a lot of the things that we discuss, living this type of life, this intentional life, you're going to need a babysitter. And you know what? Actually, it's really easy to find a babysitter. It's just that a lot of people don't know how to find a babysitter. And then on top of that, we're going to talk about all the cool things you can do with a babysitter once you found them. But the primary problem is if you can't find a babysitter, you're going to be at home with your children 365 days a year. Or your spouse is going to resent you because you may be living an intentional life, but then your spouse is at home with your children 365 days a year while you're living your intentional life. And that's causing friction as well. So let's solve all the problems and let's find you a babysitter.
We live in Toronto. There are a lot of families around who don't have family around to support them, right? They don't have grandparents close by who could come watch their kids. That includes us. So if you want to go out in the evening, for instance, Alex, tonight, our team gifted us tickets to see Seinfeld. So we're going to see Seinfeld, which requires getting a babysitter. And you don't want that to be a roadblock. So we've noticed that that's a huge roadblock for a lot of people.
And additionally, I know you're organizing a parent social through Family Council, and a lot of parents are reaching out to you for help going, oh, I'd love to come, but I can't find a babysitter. Do you have any suggestions on where I can find a babysitter? And it just comes down to systems and processes in regards to once you set these up, you will have a babysitter whenever you want. So, Laura, why don't you get into some of the ways that you've established a long list of babysitters?
Mm-hmm. So finding a babysitter is different for me than finding someone like a nanny. With nannies, it's common to use Facebook or a nanny service, like a website. When, you're dealing with babysitters, most likely teenagers or tweens, you're most likely not going to be looking online. You want a personal connection. So the first thing I would do is if you're at home, I would look out the window. I would look at your neighbors, look at the houses and see who lives there. And are there any teens who live close by that you can think of? That's the first thing. Or between your house and the school, if you walk to school, do you come across any teens? If you do, then that's a great place to start, right? Talking to your neighbors, getting to know them, familiarizing yourself with those in the community, because there may be a teen next door who wants to babysit. So I would say first step is looking within your neighborhood to see if there's anyone available and building those connections so that you've established that relationship, you get an idea of what that teenager is like, and then see if they babysit. Another one, do you have kids who have play dates with their friends? Do they have older siblings? Are they tweens? Are they teens? If so, and you're comfortable asking the parents, you probably are because they have kids coming to your house. Ask them if their tween is comfortable or interested in babysitting. If it's a tween, that would most likely be a supporting role. As a family of 3, we often, or at least when the kids were younger, we would have a babysitter come, and then we would also have a tween come as support. Or if Alex, you weren't around in the evening to help, I would have a tween come. So we will talk about the different roles that they can have, but there's a place for both teens and tweens. So yeah, quite often, if you have young kids, the older sibling might be a tween more so than a teen.
I'll also add another area you can go. if you have your children in daycare, the ECEs might be babysitters in off hours too. Those are options as well. You just gotta make sure you watch out for the daycare's guidelines.
That's true. But the other thing is, if they're not comfortable working for your family on the weekend,
Maybe someone else that they know.
yes, exactly. So actually, your friends' kids may be in a daycare with ECEs who you don't know, and they may be looking for extra work on the weekend, and they may be willing to help you because there isn't that personal connection already. If your kids are in programs, any sort of sports or camps, they're often led by teen counselors or teen teachers. If you're comfortable talking to them, that's another opportunity to ask if they want extra hours and are interested in babysitting. So those are all of the different ways that I would approach a teen to help. And it has been successful for us. We've had teens and tweens supporting us. Even older cousins, right? If you have older cousins who live close by, or rather your kids have older cousins, it can be very hard for teens to get jobs these days. And a lot of teens may turn to babysitting as a form of a job.
And I'll also say that, by you taking the initiative of asking around, as these teens don't know how to reach you, or they may not have the confidence to reach you. But if you throw out a signal to the universe
Yes,
that you're
that's right.
looking for a babysitter,
Yes.
you just got to put it out into the universe, as Laura was saying. Are there any neighbors' kids? And you can talk to the parents.
Yeah.
Like it's not that you're going right up to the teenager on the street going, "Hey, do you want to look after your kids?" My kids. That might be weird, but you talk to the parents.
That's
and
right.
Go, "Hey, so and so, I noticed you have a teenage child. Are they looking to get some babysitting hours under their belt?" But you don't stop at one, right? You need to have a whole list, because they're not always going to be available. You need your whole list of babysitter people, because there are times you're going to have to go down the list.
That's right.
And reach different individuals. But these are, as Laura said, it's harder for teens to find jobs these days. And on top of that, do you want your child necessarily working, a midnight shift at McDonald's? And I only say that because that was our neighbor's daughter when she was in high school, and she was so nervous about her daughter working at a specific McDonald's at midnight that was attached to a subway station. And so when you position it that way, hey, you can come into my safe and secure environment, my home, or you can work in this specific job. A lot of parents would much rather them be in that safe and specific home. So, but if you don't put it out in the universe,
that's it.
You're not going to find these people.
No, that's right. So the first step is just putting it out in the universe, talking about it, telling other people, saying to yourself, I'm going to find a babysitter, right? I will. I wouldn't post signs in the neighborhood.
No. Yeah,
like I wouldn't do that. But I would just tell yourself you're going to find someone, put it out in the universe. The other thing is,
actually, I was gonna jump in and just popped in my head where you could post it. And I know you said that you don't necessarily post on Facebook, but if there's a community group in your Facebook, I know we have a community group for our neighborhood, that's fairly active. You're gonna have a lot of parents on there. You could post in that.
That's true.
That group. Or if there's a WhatsApp group for your child's class, you can post in that one. Again, older siblings, this kind of thing. And it just, again, you're throwing it more out in the universe, you're going to get the inquiries back that are somewhat vetted or somewhat in the neighborhood, that you can then go through and talk to them and feel the comfort level and everything.
That's right. And then the other thing is, as you've gone through this process, you have found some teens in your neighborhood. There are teens who teach your kids. If they're not available, ask them if they have any friends who are interested. Or if you have friends who have teen babysitters, or just babysitters rather, ask them to ask if they have friends who are interested in as well. Because often that's just the beginning, right? And just from there, you can find referrals. So just put it out in the universe and ask around, and think about the first place to start is thinking about who is in reach right now.
Who's in the extended sphere?
Yeah.
Or what sphere you can create that will then have an extended sphere. And we like giving these examples of ways to reach out. It's going to be throw it out there. There's going to be feedback back, and you're going to find these individuals because there's so many people out there they're looking. Well, and just talking about our niece, who she does live in Toronto, but she does live far away. It's Toronto. Everything's far away. So she's not really accessible to us, but I know she's looking for more babysitting hours. Like they are out there. You just have to throw the messaging out there, and then through that sphere, they're going to come back to you. That's just the most important thing to start doing.
Yep, exactly.
So now that we talked about, hey, finding a babysitter is easy, you throw it in the universe, but we also notice that people then get hung up on the next step. It's like, okay, we threw it in the universe, but I have people reaching me, but now what do I say to them? How much do I pay them? And remember, when you're dealing with the babysitter on the other end too, whether it's a teen or like a preteen that's helping out, you don't want to come across as creepy either, because they may not want to work in your household. So you need to actually have a plan in place before you communicate with them to secure their services, because you want to make sure that you're a household that they want to come and work in and they feel comfortable in, because they may come work with you once and they don't answer your calls ever again because something you did just made them feel uncomfortable. So that's very important, is once you throw it in the universe, make sure you have a plan in place to make them feel comfortable. And now I want to go to you, Laura, and just talk about, because again, someone will be like, well, what kind of plan do I do with a teenager? What would you do if you've thrown a universe, you got a new recruit? How do you make them feel comfortable?
Okay, you're right. And so that's such a good point about wanting them to feel comfortable, because if I refer back to my teen babysitting days, it can be very intimidating being a teen and communicating with these parents, right? So you don't want them feeling uncomfortable, and you want to set them up for success. And
how do you set? Great, that's a great way to put it. How do you set up your babysitter for success? Yes. So
So the first thing that you want to do is, I would give them an idea of how much you're going to pay them, right? So right now, minimum wage for 15 and older is $16. So like I said, it's hard for teens to get jobs. So if this individual is 15 or older, I would treat it like it's a job. I would pay them $16 an hour. And some people might say, $16 an hour to take care of your kids? Yeah, because they're my kids, right? And I want someone who is going to take this job very seriously and want to come to our household and want to come back. I want it to be a great experience for them, right? So I'm going to offer $16 an hour, and then ask, okay, do you prefer cash or do you accept e-transfer? I like giving e-transfer, so I want to find out, do you accept e-transfer? Yes. Okay. Are you okay if I pay you by e-transfer? Yes. Okay. Setting the hours when I want them to come, and respecting those hours. So if I say, I want you to come, are you available from 6 until 9 p.m., respecting the end time. Or what is the very latest, right? Having that conversation and not assuming, oh, they're fine. I said 9 p.m., but I'm going to message them right now at 9 p.m. and see if they're okay staying an extra hour. And then they respond. And on their end, they're like, oh my gosh, that, I don't want to. But they're put in a position where they feel like they can't say no, right? So respecting the times that you tell them, and then communicating the expectations to them, right? If you don't want a teen to come and just sit on the couch with your kids and be on their phone the entire time, you communicate to them, okay, so come, and I would love for you to play with them. You guys can play games. You can set up the fort. You can, I would love for you to read to them, give them an idea of the schedule and your expectations and what you don't want them to do. So if you don't want them to be on their phone, and I ask that you aren't on your phone when you come. all of the babysitters who come to our house, they walk in the front door and they all put their phones down on our foyer counter. And that's it. And then they go off and they manage our kids. They aren't on the phone because I tell them that I don't want them on the phone and that my kids aren't to go on YouTube. So they know they're not turning on YouTube for my kids. So I'm setting the expectations for them so that they have a very clear idea and they like that. They want that.
Well,
direction.
especially at that age too, they want expectations, just like your children
Yeah.
want guardrails, rules. When you provide the rules, it provides them a framework to understand what they're working with.
Yep, exactly. So just to reiterate, I am clearly communicating the hourly wage that I'm going to pay them and how I'm going to pay them. And I am setting the hours and I'm respecting the hours. And I'm communicating my expectations, including phone use and like showing them around the kitchen, saying that they're welcome to eat the food, telling them bedtime, showing them where things are, really setting them up for success so that they aren't left with unknowns and asking, do you have any questions for me? So one thing that we have done in the past is before we actually need them to babysit, they have come over to meet the kids, to meet us, to get a good idea rather than the night of, so that they know what to expect. It's not as busy, and then they can actually decide if they want to come back or not.
I think yes. So what Laura's talking about is what you would do is call it a
meet and greet,
a meet and greet,
yeah.
but like a supervised
yes.
paid session before.
That's right.
So what you would do is have them come over after school. You're there and they're just interacting with your children for 2 hours and you're going to pay them.
Yep.
But now what you've done is they feel more, they've come into your household while you're there. So they feel more comfortable. They're able to ask questions about where certain things are. They're engaging with your children. The children get to know them. So again, this is part of your vetting process. You're like, well, how do I know my children are going to be safe with them? Well, why don't you have them come over while you're there and watch how they interact with your kids? And that's going to give you a better comfort level of how they're dealing with things when you're not there, because you're there watching them interact with your kids. So it's a two-way street in what you're proposing as well. That's kind of their trial period with you. You're watching supervised,
Mm-hmm.
and they're also there too. Is like, oh, are they comfortable, in dealing with the children and everything like that as well. So again, a very systemized, processed way to do things. And by doing it this way, you're going to create your list of go-to people. And again, by doing the supervised trial, it's just like if you were doing a job.
Yeah.
And someone's doing a job and they're on their probationary period, or even I should even say, like, even when we do hiring at the company, there is the 1 day paid day trial within the company. You do these things. Hey, is it more expensive? Hey guys, yeah, it's expensive, but really it's not expensive if you think of the peace of mind it gives you. If you do this, you have a the trial day with the person, so oh, they're fine with so and so. I saw them interact with our kids for 2 hours while I was there. They did a great job. Any of the questions they had, we were able to answer it. I was able to show them around the house. They know where everything is. It just gives you peace of mind. So it's actually less expensive by doing it this way because you're doing everything right.
Yep, that's right. Some other things to consider. If you have looked in your neighborhood and there are no teens and your kids aren't in programs where there are teens available and you still need that babysitter, but you haven't found anyone, what's the next place where you can go? You could use an agency, and some people may use websites. When it's not through a personal connection, I would highly encourage a background check. So through police services, you can get background checks done. And you may not be skilled at actually looking at a background check, but if you have a friend or if you know someone, or you could send it to me, have someone who's experienced at looking at a background check, look at it. Some other factors that I want to just go over when finding a babysitter to consider are the babysitter's course. So the babysitter's course is available. It provides CPR first aid training, I believe. And, it just gives some peace of mind knowing that you have a babysitter who has that. So I would ask if they have CPR first aid training. And if they don't, ask if they would consider getting it. Hey, if there's a babysitter that I really wanted and they didn't have training, I would even consider offering to pay for them. So that's just one thing. Because that would, you're nervous for the first time leaving your kids with a babysitter. They don't have first aid and CPR. I think that's something you want to make sure that they do have. And let's say you've exhausted all your local resources. You really cannot find a local babysitter or through a personal connection, and you need to really outsource and use an agency, or maybe it's a local Facebook group, but there isn't that personal connection. And this would probably be someone who's in their 20s or older, but not a teen. For those individuals, I would highly recommend doing a reference check. And when I do reference checks, I generally ask for email addresses and phone numbers, but email addresses that are related or connected to someone's workplace, just to ensure that it's not just a friend. And maybe I can find them on LinkedIn and just do some sort of background check to ensure that the reference they're providing is actually a parent that they have worked for. And then I would also conduct a background check through police services. And then, they most likely, if they're working with kids, or let's say they have already had a police check done, have them send it your way, but thoroughly look it over by someone, either yourself, if you're experienced looking at reference checks, or if you know someone who's experienced looking at reference checks, just get them to look it over to make sure it is a legitimate form. Another source, if you haven't considered it, is summer camp counselors.
Well, I'd say camps in general.
Camps.
Because there's March break camps. There could be holiday camps over the Christmas holidays.
That's right.
Any type of camp.
Yes.
Any type of area where your kids are being looked after by teenagers.
Exactly. Right. So scout them out. Ask them if they're interested. They like kids. Ask if they're interested in babysitting outside of working in camp, and see if that is an option. And if not, again, maybe they have a friend.
And I'll say as well is, the more you set up your systems and processes, so when you approach a teenager, and this just popped in my head now, like, why wouldn't you do this? You can create a CV, like a little standalone web page for, hey, here's my household and expectations. And what I mean by that is, you may approach a teenager and go, but the teenagers know you.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So when we talk about making the teenager comfortable, it's not only just teenager, it's the parents too. Like, do the parents want that teenager going into your household? So the more information, without getting into too confidential stuff, putting it out there. But if you approach a teenager, hey, I'm looking for some help looking after my kids. And, if you need to run this by your parents, here's some information about ourselves. And if you go to this website, check it out, just so that you're comfortable and your parents are comfortable allowing you to come into our household. Just, again, something to help find that person and feel them comfortable in your house, because there's competition as well. There's other parents that want to use that babysitter too. Mm-hmm. So the more you can do to get that person into your house, just like if you're doing a resume, that collaboration, you want to get them in there.
That's right. And as much as it could be a risk, finding just a random babysitter and bringing them into your home, it's a huge risk for them accepting it and coming into your home. So you want to get all those unknowns out of the way and answer any questions and legitimize yourselves as a household and a family so that they are interested to come.
Exactly. 1,000%.
We talked about minimum wage. I said that we like to pay our babysitters minimum wage, and that is for our 3 kids. However, I want to make it very clear that for us, the babysitter that we use for our 3 kids isn't putting our kids down to bed. So it's just the number of kids that you have. Definitely, it does play a role in what you have the babysitter doing. So if I had a teen putting our 3 kids down to bed when they were 2, 4, and 6. Well, we never had our babysitter putting them down to bed at 2, 4, and 6. But if I did, I would actually bring in someone else to support them. Because if you think about yourself as a parent, and if you find it challenging putting your 3 kids down to bed on your own, how easy is it going to be now for a teenager to do that with 3 kids? So I would just think about what you are capable of doing, which is probably a lot more as the parent, because you don't want it to be difficult for them, right? So if you need to bring in someone to support them, and maybe it's a tween who they know, who they're comfortable with, I would do that. And if you don't, then I would highly suggest, or in our case, I would have checked to see if they are comfortable putting 3 kids down to bed. And if so, I would pay them more than minimum wage. I do remember being a child or being a teen and watching 4 kids on my own and putting them down to bed. And it was a terrible experience. And I never went back to that family. But if I got paid more, or if I had someone to support me, I probably would have gone back. So those are just some things. You want repeat business, right? So again, think about how you can set them up for success and make it worth their while, because they are trying to treat this like a job and you don't want it to be so challenging for them that they don't come back.
And I'll also add is give them regular business too. And this is talking about, hey, if you can enjoy your life a little more, maybe if you're able to establish, and we do this, we do it every Friday. Every Friday we have someone to come look after our kids. We don't necessarily have something planned right now for next Friday. But we know that we have something that we're going to have a break from the children on Friday. So if you create a regular stream of income and a regular stream of business, then you're able to establish a routine for someone as well. So that's something to look at too. And once you have that, that's going to help secure the relationships with someone.
That's right. And that is something that we will further dig into in a future episode. And if you like this, you can check us out on our Instagram, YouTube, or LinkedIn channels at Intentional Household.